Hello, my name is Karan Butler, and this is my presentation on employee relations for my management and staffing class. And my professor is Dr. Sherry, and we are going to focus on the Starbucks Coffee Corporation, which is everyone is familiar with. I used to work with the company for about 8 years in leadership, so I'm very familiar with their processes from the past, and I was had the opportunity to learn more about their processes in the current role and for the future. So the first thing I'm going to focus on is the communication styles. So Starbucks focus on human connection. That's the number one thing that they pride themselves on. Where, basically the coffee is their product, but the human connection is their business. So they really embrace that mantra, and part of them being successful is the fact that they have the human connection, and this is for internal partners and also for the customers as well. Making every experience legendary and welcoming is the main thing they talked about when you first start the training, and it speaks for itself. If you ever been to a Starbucks location, um, they call everyone by their name. You have some regulars that you see constantly on a regular basis, that was one of the reasons why I love working for the company. You also have to have the passion for it. Without the passion for the human connection, it feels very forced. So it's very, very important that they select candidates that can have that kind of passion for the customer service role and also for having a human connection. You also have to have a high level of emotional intelligence while working for the company, especially in leadership. You have to know when to respond accordingly or when to make sure you are able to recognize certain behaviors, certain emotions. So therefore, the necessary actions have to take place. Same way for customers, which involve a lot of body language or feedback for the drinks. A lot of customers are very meticulous about what they want. So this was one of the great tools that I have learned from Starbucks. And from my interview that I gained from one of the supervisors, one big tip that she mentioned about her communication style is that each style is different when it comes to leaders. One big takeaway that I got from her is that it's important to learn what communication style works with your employees because that's the only way they would be successful. And I 100% agree with that philosophy. It is important to know what works for your employees and adjust accordingly, so therefore they can understand the vision and what's expected of them as entry level employees. One great example that the supervisor was able to tell me in an interview about a great human connection that was more so internally was one of their partners was having a baby and they couldn't really afford it. So, the employee always vented up to leaderships about how it was a hard time for them and they need more hours. And the leader took the initiative to start some kind of a fund internally for this employee, so therefore she can be able to buy diapers and all the miscellaneous things you would need to start a family of a newborn baby. And I thought that was very, very, very powerful and important because that employee did feel appreciated. And it shows that the leadership was basically paying attention and showing that human connection and basically living by what they preach, which is having a human connection internally and externally. So some of my feedbacks that I gave for the communication style is it's important to have communication logs. I know that that's something that they wasn't really familiar with, but Starbucks have a lot of promotional ideas, and I remember one idea that I implemented when I was a leader was make sure that they have communication logs for when there's a new process or something new that takes place in the business. Everyone is familiar with it, and everyone can sign off for it. My big philosophy is you can't hold anyone accountable if they don't know anything about that. So I always suggest to have some kind of communication log or some kind of a memo that employees will sign up for. And also having huddles. I talk about huddles a lot in my papers, and I think they're very effective to spend 30 minutes before your shift and after your shift to discuss some things that you guys notice in leadership, some feedback from the employees, and it allows everyone to be cohesive and learn from one another and be able to be on the same page. The importance of diversity. More pictures of here. I like showing a lot of pictures of um, Starbucks and their employees because they hire a wide range of different ethnicities, and that's one thing I did love about the company as well. So the Starbucks formula that they use for diversity is basically diversity equals the inclusion plus accessibility and equality. That's their main components that they strive from when it comes to this formula. And basically, when it comes to this formula, inclusion involves the human connection and engagement. Equality is the fairness and justice, and accessibility consists of the ease of use and barrier free. So Star Wars have been, very dedicated of making sure that they strive off this and have diversity everywhere and within their business. From my personal experience, when I worked there, I worked with people from all over the world. I had trained some employees that was from India, some people that was from New Mexico. Starbucks really have a huge LGBT population. And that's one of the organizations that I am affiliated with and that I embrace as well. So, you never see the same type of group of people in one Starbucks setting. And one big takeaway that I learned from the interview that the supervisor was able to advise me was that one big takeaway of having diversity is that you get to learn from different groups and learn about different cultures, which eliminates a lot of stereotypes. And I think that's very important to learn about different cultures because it shows that you're very interested and it can make people feel very welcome. Another thing too about the importance of diversity is that it increases the um, perfect performance for employees because if they feel comfortable, they're able to complete their job and do it successfully. Performance appraisal and conflict management. So, Starbucks use a lot of a lot of performance appraisals internally and also externally as well. So, more so for the customer side, they have what is called customer comment cards, which is also ties to incentives. So, some customers would randomly get chosen to take a survey, and they will also be able to go online to talk about their experience. And then, if they complete the survey, they get a code which allows them to come back to the store to get a free tall drink. So I think that is a great idea that Starbucks have this innovation because they're allowed to get feedbacks from their customers to see what they need to do to make improvements, and also the customers get something out of it as well because they also get to be able to get a free beverage as well as making sure that customers are doing the feedback survey. So Starbucks take that information and look at metrics to see where they score at according to the customer eyes, and then make business decisions from there. So Starbucks also do employee reviews, more so in electronic base versus the old style of an appraisal document. But basically, they do these reviews every 6 months with employees to talk about areas of opportunities, and where they are in the company and have they achieved their goals. Starbucks do work on a ranking system, but they also add wording such as did I meet expectations, exceed expectations, or go above and beyond. So some of the things that they do focus on a lot is that they allow employees to do. They focus on short term and long term goals for part of the review. So once you do your review, you will come up with a short term and a long term goal and see if they're able to achieve that the next 6 months after they meet again. So one of my things I learned from my interview with the supervisors and manager is that they do take that the audit information to focus on trends and areas of opportunities, as I stated before, and then that allows them to know if there's some need of special training, what is it that they're doing as leaders to make that causes the appointees to be in certain categories, as far as meeting expectations or not. Um, One good thing that they are taking implemented of is having action plans for when there is an area of opportunity such as behavioral or time and attendance, that they bring this to the employees' attention and then they make an action plan. So therefore, the employees understand what they're getting marked down for, what actions would take place if this goal is not achieved, and therefore they're able to be held accountable, and feel empowered to make changes upon themselves. So some of my feedbacks that I added for the appraisal piece was, I love the 360 method rule. I think that it's very important that not just my store manager at the time gave me feedback, but I got feedback from my supervisors, my some comments from my peers, and also in combination of customers as well, because it allows you to see different perspective of how you're doing as an employee. Um, I made a suggestion that employees should always do self evaluations first. So therefore, employees should be able to evaluate yourself before the review between the manager and them, and be able to present this information to the leaders. And then what happened is, the leaders will compare and contrast the information versus what the employees evaluate themselves and versus what the leaders evaluate themselves. I think that that is very important because sometimes employees don't really understand what is expected of them, and therefore this allow leaders to know that if the employees rate themselves in a certain categories, they get to know the why behind it and make sure that their employees understand what's expected of them and everyone is on the same page. And overall, just adding different variety of different strategies for doing appraisals, evaluations is very important because again, you get to see different areas or different spectrums of how you're doing far as performance within the company. So for conflict management, one thing that Starbucks always do is you document everything, every little thing that you can. Whether it's someone coming in late, whether it's someone going home early, whether it's someone having issues with team members. It's very, very important to document the information just in case if we get to the point of a separation. So we often used to do coachings or quick hits, which was something where you quick hits is something that's not really documented, but it won't be held against an employee's um, employee's performance score. So for a perfect example would be if an employee um, had their shirt untucked in, that's something that you will coach right away. Something that's not going to really impact their performance. Just something that between you and a conversation you had with the employee, and you just coach them right away. Something more excessive would be if there was like an employee that sweared at a customer. That would be more of a strong coaching or something that needs to have a conversation between the store managers. So that's the difference between the two. And there's always levels of disciplinary actions that Starbucks take place, and that's usually it's a quick kick. Then it start off as a strong coaching. Then next is like it's a coaching opportunity with action plans such as a corrective action, and then it leads up all the way to suspension and to separation. So one thing that the employees that I learned from Starbucks from my supervisors is that they have the levels of chain of command when certain situations occur. If it's something that supervisor will handle, they will take ownership and be able to take action from there. But there are some things that are out of the supervisor's control, which is supervisors don't terminate employees or write them up. They just make recommendations. So you would just follow that chain of command whenever, depending on the situation that take place between the employees. So training and development. So Star Wars follow a tell, show, and do process where you tell an employee how to do something, you show them, and then they're able to implement it as well. So it's basically practicing what you preach, and I think that's very important. That's a very important style for visual learners when it comes to training because Starbucks have a lot of drinks to try to memorize. So I think that that's very, very important. Starbucks also have the Starbucks Experience class for onboarding when you start, and what they basically is you are able to go to a class that lasts about 5 hours out of your day that is paid for, and you learn more about the Starbucks culture, policy and procedures, first impressions, dress code. It's more so onboarding, but more so in a class setting, and employees are able to take an evaluation course to get their certification that they pass the Starbucks Experience class. So very helpful if you're not really familiar with the culture. Allows you to hit a lot of bullet points regarding the Starbucks culture, rules and policies, and etc. Some takeaways that the I got from the leaders was the training and onboarding process is something that they really do admire and that they have, and that they're trying to make it more so where they're able to pick the correct candidates that meets the culture as well. So the onboarding process is something that they really do enjoy because supervisors get to definitely jump in and play a big role in the onboarding process. The supervisors are majority are the trainers. So that's one thing that changed over time. Usually the managers will be responsible for that, but supervisors are part of the development